Alex Turner had always been a devoted husband. But recently, Alex began to feel like something was off. It started small, like a crack in a glass that you don't notice until it's too late. Jessica, who was always so affectionate, had started to become distant. She came home late from work more often, and when she was home, her attention was divided, her phone constantly buzzing with messages, which she seemed to hide from him. At first, he didn't think much of it. She was busy with clients, after all. But as the days went by, the changes became harder to ignore. One night, after Lily had gone to bed, Alex decided to address it. They were sitting on the couch, and Jessica was scrolling through her phone, her usual smile nowhere to be found. "Jess, is everything okay?" Alex asked, his voice softer than usual. She glanced up, her face momentarily tensing before she forced a smile. "Of course. Why wouldn't it be?" "I don't know," Alex replied, trying to remain calm. "You've been distant lately. It's like you're somewhere else when you're here. Is everything okay at work? Or, is there something else?" Jessica looked away, her fingers nervously tapping on her phone screen. "It's just stress, Alex. You know how it is. Freelancing isn't always easy. I've been overwhelmed with deadlines." Alex nodded, not fully convinced but unwilling to press further. He trusted her, he always had. But the nagging feeling didn't go away. The strange texts, the unexplained late nights, the emotional distance, it all felt like something was missing, something important. The next few days passed with an unsettling sense of unease. Alex kept his eyes open for any clues, but Jessica had become more careful. Her phone was glued to her side, and she always kept it face down whenever they were together. If he mentioned it, she would get defensive, brushing it off as nothing. Then came the first piece of concrete evidence. One morning, Alex got up early for a meeting. As he grabbed his briefcase by the door, he noticed a small, crumpled piece of paper on the kitchen counter. It wasn't like Jessica to leave things out of place, and curiosity got the better of him. He unfolded it. It was a note from a man named Eric. The message was brief but telling: "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll be waiting at 7. Alex froze, the paper slipping from his hands. His heart skipped a beat. The name Eric didn't ring any bells, but the context was clear. He had no doubt about what this was. Jessica had been cheating on him. It was the first confirmation of the betrayal he had only suspected up until that moment. His mind raced with 1,000 questions, each one more painful than the last. Who was Eric? How long had this been going on? And most importantly, why had Jessica kept this from him for so long? That evening, when Jessica came home, Alex tried to act normal. He wasn't sure how to confront her, but the anger and hurt bubbled under the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. So, Alex began, his voice tight with suppressed emotion. "I found something today." Jessica looked up from her phone, a hint of unease crossing her face. "What do you mean?" "This," he said, tossing the crumpled note on the table in front of her. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment, Alex thought she might confess. But then she quickly recovered, picking up the note and forcing a laugh. "Alex, you're overreacting. That's just a note from a client. He's just reminding me about a meeting." Alex stood up, the frustration and hurt clouding his judgment. "A meeting? At 7 at night, Jess? Come on. Don't lie to me. I saw the note. Who's Eric?" Jessica's face turned pale, and for the first time in a long while, Alex saw real fear in her eyes. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. "I'm not stupid, Jessica," Alex said, his voice now rising. "I know something is going on. I'm not going to sit here and let you lie to me." Her hands trembled as she set the note down. "Alex, please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "It's not what you think. I never wanted to hurt you." But Alex could already feel the distance growing, the wall between them rising higher. He had no answers, only more questions. His whole world had just been turned upside down, and the woman he had trusted more than anyone else was now lying to his face. The next few days were a blur. Jessica apologized profusely, but Alex couldn't bring himself to forgive her, not yet. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the more he thought about the note, the more everything started to make sense. The late nights, the secrecy, the phone that was always locked. It all pointed to one undeniable truth: his wife had been unfaithful. As Alex sat alone in his office at work, the weight of the situation settled over him like a storm cloud. He wasn't sure what to do next, but one thing was clear: he wasn't going to let this go. He needed to find out the full extent of what was going on, even if it meant uncovering more painful truths along the way. For the next few days, Alex kept his distance from Jessica. Her apologies were constant, but they felt hollow, empty. Every time she reached out, tried to comfort him, he felt more and more disconnected from her. The trust was shattered, and all he could think about was the note. He had to know more. He couldn't just sit idly by while his life was falling apart. One evening, after Jessica left for what she claimed was a client meeting, Alex decided to take matters into his own hands. He had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. He knew he wasn't the type to pry into other people's lives, but this wasn't just anyone, it was his wife. And she had lied to him. He had every right to find out the full story. He started with the phone. It was risky, but at this point, Alex didn't care. As soon as Jessica was out the door, he grabbed her phone off the counter and unlocked it. He wasn't even sure what he was looking for, but he knew the answer had to be there. The first thing he found was a series of texts between Jessica and Eric. His hands shook as he read through them. The messages were intimate, full of flirtations, plans to meet up, and coded language that Alex now realized he had been oblivious to for far too long. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure Alex is out of the way. He'll never know." The word stung. He couldn't believe it. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she been lying to him, telling him she was working late, when she was really with this man? Alex continued scrolling, finding more text messages, more evidence of their affair. It was like a punch to the gut, each new message more painful than the last. But there was one thing that caught his attention. Toward the end of the conversation, a new message from Eric stood out. "We need to be more careful. He's starting to get suspicious." Alex's stomach dropped. Was this the point where Jessica had started slipping up? Was she so deep into the affair that she didn't even care about the lies anymore? Or had she known all along that she was getting away with it? He needed to confront her again, but he also needed more evidence. He couldn't just accuse her without being certain. Alex had always prided himself on being level-headed, but now, all he could think about was the betrayal. He had to keep digging. That night, after Jessica returned home, Alex decided to take a different approach. He was calm, too calm. He didn't want to lose control. He had learned that confrontation in the heat of the moment only led to mistakes. Instead, he decided to give her a chance to admit it, to come clean on her own terms. "I need you to be honest with me, Jess," Alex said, his voice low but firm. "I found the texts. I know about Eric. I just want you to tell me the truth." Jessica froze, her eyes wide with panic. For a long moment, she didn't speak, and Alex could see the internal battle raging inside her. She had been caught. There was no getting out of it now. She started, but her words faltered. "Alex, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." Alex's heart sank. The apology, the tears, the excuses. It was everything he had expected, but none of it made the situation any easier to bear. He had heard it all before, and it all felt like the same hollow script. A mistake? Alex repeated. You've been seeing him behind my back for months. You think this is just a mistake? Do you think I'm stupid? She looked away, not meeting his gaze. I never meant for this to hurt you, Alex. It was just something that happened. I don't know how it got out of control. I'm sorry, I really am. Please, believe me. Alex stood up, shaking his head in disbelief. You've been lying to me for months, Jessica. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? You think I can just forget this? I know I messed up, okay, she said, her voice rising in desperation. But it's over now. I ended things with Eric. I swear, I won't see him again. Please, just give me a chance to fix this. But Alex couldn't bring himself to forgive her. He had already seen enough. He knew the truth. And that truth was that the woman he had trusted more than anyone else had broken him in a way he wasn't sure he could come back from. I don't know if I can, Jessica, Alex said, his voice shaking with suppressed anger. You've destroyed everything we built. You've broken my trust, and I don't think I can ever get it back. Jessica's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out for him. Please, don't do this. I'll do anything, Alex. I'm sorry. Please. But Alex pulled away, his mind made up. The pain was too fresh, too raw, and no apology could undo what she had done. As the days went by, Alex started to make plans. He couldn't just sit back and let this happen to him. He had to take action. Jessica had shattered everything, and he couldn't let her off the hook so easily. He didn't want to drag things out for months, but he also didn't want to walk away feeling powerless. He began working with a lawyer to initiate the divorce proceedings. But more than that, he was planning his revenge, not just for the affair, but for the way Jessica had lied to him, the way she had manipulated him into trusting her while she was betraying him. But revenge didn't mean what most people thought it meant. It wasn't about public humiliation or taking away everything she had. It was about making her feel the emotional weight of what she had done, and Alex knew exactly how to do it. The days dragged on, each one more suffocating than the last. As the initial shock of Jessica's betrayal started to settle into a dull ache, Alex was left with the burning desire to make things right, not just for himself, but for the life they had built together, which had now fallen apart. He had made the decision to get a divorce, but that wasn't enough. The truth had to be exposed, and Jessica had to feel the weight of what she had done. It wasn't about revenge for the sake of revenge, or at least, that's what Alex told himself. It was about giving her a taste of the same emotional torment he had felt. It was about her realizing the cost of the lies she had so freely told. For months, she had manipulated him, and now, he had to be the one in control. He couldn't let her off easy. The first step in his plan was to gather every shred of evidence he could. The texts, the notes, even the receipts for the client meetings that didn't add up. The more he dug, the clearer it became that Jessica had been living a double life. The affair with Eric wasn't a one-time mistake, it was ongoing, and it was far more serious than she had let on. There were photos of them together, hidden in her phone, selfies, and pictures that spoke volumes. There were also messages where Jessica was making excuses for her absences, talking about work deadlines and client emergencies, all while she was with him. Alex didn't show any of this to Jessica. He kept it to himself, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of seeing his pain. Instead, he let it simmer, carefully planning how to make her face what she had done. Then, the unexpected happened. One day, after an afternoon spent collecting more evidence, Alex received a call from an old friend of his, Ben. They hadn't talked much in the last year, not since Ben had moved across the state for a new job, but the conversation that followed was unexpected and left Alex reeling. "Ethan, you've got to listen to me," Ben said, his voice low and urgent. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I think Jessica's been seeing someone else. I saw her with a guy, a man I didn't recognize. They were getting in her car outside the coffee shop. It was the same guy I saw in some of her social media posts. I didn't want to say anything before, but I think you need to know. Ben's words hung in the air like a heavy weight. This wasn't just some random coincidence. It was confirmation of everything Alex had suspected and feared. Ben was a good friend, and he had no reason to make this up. Alex felt the walls closing in. There was no escaping the truth anymore. The following day, Jessica was supposed to be at work, but Alex had made up his mind to take action. He had everything he needed, everything that would make her realize just how much damage she had caused. He knew she would be home later in the evening, and he planned to confront her in a way that she would never forget. As the evening wore on, Alex stood in front of their bedroom mirror, steadying his nerves. He couldn't afford to let her see him falter. The anger was still there, but it was controlled now. Cold. Calculated. When Jessica walked in through the door later that evening, Alex was sitting on the couch, his expression calm but intense. Jessica froze when she saw him, the tension immediately filling the room. She had no idea what was coming. Ethan, she said cautiously. What's going on? Alex didn't respond right away. He let the silence linger, letting her feel the weight of the moment. Then, with a deep breath, he stood and held out his phone. I know about Eric, he said quietly. And I know about the others too. The lies, the deceit. I've seen everything. Jessica's face drained of color. She took a step back, her hands trembling. Ethan, please, just let me explain. But Alex wasn't interested in hearing explanations anymore. He had spent the last few months waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, he couldn't bring himself to care about her excuses. She had already said enough to break him. Explain, he scoffed. How do you explain this, Jessica? How do you explain the man you've been seeing, the lies, the betrayal? How do you explain all the times you've told me everything was fine, while you were lying to my face? Her eyes welled up with tears, but Alex couldn't bring himself to feel sorry for her. She had made her choice. And now, she was going to face the consequences. I'm done, he said, his voice unwavering. I'm done pretending everything's okay. I've already filed for divorce, and now you can deal with the consequences of your actions. Jessica crumpled in front of him, the tears flowing freely now. She pleaded for him to forgive her, to give her another chance, but Alex was resolute. There was no going back. As part of his plan, Alex had already contacted the lawyer to move forward with the divorce, ensuring that Jessica would have to face the emotional and financial consequences of her infidelity. He had made it clear to her that this wasn't going to be a simple separation. She would have to account for everything, from the affair to her emotional betrayal. But Alex's revenge wasn't just about the legal battle. It wasn't about money or material things. It was about making Jessica understand the gravity of what she had done, about making her feel the emotional weight of every lie, every deceit. He would ensure that her affair was exposed. He would tell their mutual friends, their family, anyone who had been misled by her smiles and false assurances. As the days went by, Jessica became a shadow of herself. The people she had once been close to started to distance themselves from her, the truth too hard to deny. Alex had made sure of that. The emotional toll was devastating for her. The weight of her betrayal had come crashing down, and she had no choice but to face it.